Dear friends, welcome again for the series of talks on prayer. The theme, When I Cannot Pray. This is the 41st episode. We have so far covered general introduction to prayers and how to pray, when to pray, and how often we need to pray. We also elaborately dealt with the five senses and the way we connect them to God, and then we saw how Jesus' prayer was successful, being with the Father, with the people, and with nature. That is why how effective and powerful was Jesus' prayer. Then we focused our attention on imagination and fantasy, the intricacies that are involved in these two interior faculties, and we reflected on the role of memory and how it can be tamed or disciplined and trained through the theological virtue of hope. Now we proceed with our reflection on the intellect and its role in our daily prayer. The intellect is a very important faculty, spiritual faculty. According to Saint John of the Cross, I am quoting now, to reach union with God, the intellect must obviously blind itself to all the paths along which it can travel. Aristotle teaches that just as the sun is total darkness to the eye of a bat, so the brightest light in God is total darkness to our intellect. And he teaches in addition that the loftier and clearer the things of God are in themselves, the more unknown and obscure they are to our intellect. We find this quote, Ascent of Mount Carmel, Book 2, Chapter 8, Paragraph 6. The source of human knowledge is intellect or reason or mind. Intelligence in current usage means the power of learning from experience or the ability to adapt to new circumstances. As such, intelligence is opposed to instinct, a type of inborn knowledge that excludes learning and is present in animals. Taken in this sense, intelligence is present not only in human person but also in lower animals. Hence, the expression animal intelligence, which is current in psychological literature. Formerly, the term intelligence was reserved exclusively to spiritual beings, men, angels, and God. In human person, it designates his higher cognitive faculty as opposed to sense faculties. Many philosophers still use intelligence in this sense. If, however, one wishes to speak formally of human person's higher cognitive power precisely as immaterial and spiritual, it is better to use the term intellect, since this is never associated with animals. The distinction thus made between intelligence and intellect corresponds to some extent to the distinction made by St. Thomas Aquinas between reason, ratio, and intellect, intellectus. For him, reason refers to the activity of immaterial cognitive faculty as it progresses gradually or discursively towards the knowledge of truth. The intellect, on the other hand, is that same power as it intuitively knows being and the first principles of being. Although this is a useful distinction, unfortunately it is beset by terminological difficulties in the present day. Many modern philosophers use reason to designate the higher aspect of man's cognitive power and understanding, to designate its lower aspect. In scholastic thought, intelligence is sometimes used to refer to angels, since they are pure spirits, immaterial beings composed of intelligence and will. Intellect is an immaterial or spiritual cognitive faculty. A faculty is that by means of which human person performs mental or conscious operations, and a cognitive faculty is concerned with the mental operation of knowing. Immaterial or spiritual signifies something not intrinsically dependent on matter, not requiring matter as an auxiliary cause for its existence or for its operation. Vision requires material organs, the eyes, as an auxiliary cause. Without them, the soul cannot see. Thinking does not require a material cause, but is caused directly by the soul through the intellect. Since thinking is an immaterial or spiritual operation, the faculty by means of which it occurs, the intellect, is immaterial. Intellect is sometimes considered as synonymous with intelligence, yet it is better to distinguish between the two. The term intelligence is being used more and more to designate the mind of animals in addition to that of man. Since the animal mind is a material power intrinsically dependent on matter, it is essentially different from human intellect. Intellect helps to extract the data that is supplied to the mind by the senses and make general ideas, universal judgments, and systems of information. For example, the idea of a flower or a bird. Three important operations make up this development: apprehension, judgment, and reasoning. Through apprehension, the intellect abstracts the universal idea. Through the judgment, the intellect associates or separates two ideas, and through reasoning, a new idea is born. Facts are simply sense experiences, examined and verified by reason, and such knowledge is necessary to check the mythical faculty. But the world of sense experience or sense appearance is, after all, a very limited aspect of human experience. To quote something from the Hindu scripture, Upanishad says, beyond the senses is the mind, the manas, the reason. Above the mind is the intellect, the buddhi, the pure intelligence. Above the intellect is the great self, the mahat, or the cosmic consciousness. Above the great self is the unmanifest, the world of ideas, the nous. Above the unmanifest is the person, Purusha, the all-pervading and imperceptible. Beyond the person, there is nothing. That is Katha Upanishad, chapter 3, verses 10 to 11. Intellect is a faculty that helps us to analyze and synthesize what we see, touch, hear, taste, and smell. If we do not understand, we cannot accept or reject anything in this world. Ultimately, acceptance is the key to God experience. Saint Thomas Aquinas, a giant theologian and philosopher, elaborates on the question whether any created intellect can, by its own power, see God's essence. This question provides the occasion for some important considerations on the way in which we know things. To know God, who is a self-subsistent being, is beyond the natural power of any created intellect. It cannot see God's essence unless God unites himself to it by his grace. However, the intellect must be actively raised up to the capacity to experience God in prayer in the initial stages of spiritual life. This further explained, although God is infinitely knowable, no finite intellect elevated by divine grace will be able to comprehend God. This does not mean that there is something in God that will not be seen, but that he will not be seen as perfectly as he is capable of being seen. This also implies that the created intellect will not see all that God does or can do. If this were the case, it would have to comprehend God. The created intellect will know other things in and through God's essence, in which the likeness of all things pre-exist. It will see them not successively but all at once, because all things are seen in the same eternal essence of God. That is why God cannot be fully known by natural reason. Our natural knowledge can reach so far as it can be led by sensible objects. Since these sensible things are effects of God which do not equal his power, they cannot give us knowledge of God's essence, but only of his existence. They also show that what must be necessarily belong to him as the first cause of all things, exceeding whatever is caused by him. Dear friends, coming to our argument on prayer, it should be kept in mind that prayer opens up great avenues to understanding God's ways. Prayer is the way to God. Intellect cannot grasp the essence of God through the created universe. However, it is associated with mind. Nothing ever happens in the human world that does not first happen inside a mind. When we pray and fill our mind for an hour a day with thoughts and resolutions bearing on the love of God and neighbor above all things, there is a gradual seepage of love down to the level of what is called the subconsciousness. Finally, these good thoughts emerge of themselves in the form of effortless good actions in our daily life. St. John of the Cross dedicates the entire book of Ascent of Mount Carmel, the second book, to the study of the intellect. He writes that to reach union with God, the intellect, open quote, must obviously blind itself to all paths along which it can travel. End quote. Ascent of Mount Carmel, Book 2, Chapter 8, Paragraph 6. Because just as the sun is total darkness to the eyes of a bat, so the brightest light in God is total darkness to our intellect. Ascent of Mount Carmel, Book 2, Chapter 8, Paragraph 6. This signifies that no thought can lead us to God unless it is reinforced through faith. Our prayer can only dispose ourselves to receive the knowledge of God if He wishes to grant us that grace. Dear friends, having said all this, what is important in our life when we try to understand what is our mind and intellect? It is a power God has given us. When we think of human intelligence or human intellect, we can just imagine all the things that are accomplished by human intellect on this planet. We have fast moving jets, mega computers, We have the internet, and we have multiple ways of communication. We have the giant architectural structures and the science, whether it is medical science or any other science for that matter, all because of this power God has given us. This power must be used not only for the things of this world, dear friends. We need progress. We need to develop. We cannot stop. We need to go maybe to space and discover other planets and stars and galaxies or whatever, because there is no end to intellect. Look at the animals. They have been living the same type of life for millions of years. We do not find animals building superstructures, or we do not find animals producing something extraordinary, or the way of transport or whatever. We do not find that among the animals. No, animals have been living just as they had been living. The human intellect is so powerful, so empowered, so great. We need to appreciate and we need to accept that this particular faculty God's gift to us must be utilized through faith to discover more about God, so that we may be able to relate ourselves to Him and have that friendly relationship, who on His part will greatly empower, enrich our intellect. That's why giants, in one way or the other, giants, intellectual giants, we can speak of in this modern world. I'm very much impressed by Elon Musk. He's an intellectual giant, and the way he has created things that really we ourselves are not able to grasp. The recent inventions and satellites he has launched in the space, it is going to help humanity. Recently I read, just 2 or 3 days ago, I read that Elon Musk has provided a facility for telephone users that they can now connect themselves from any remote part of this planet, any remote area. We do not require any other way of communication than this. That is the power of intellect, and we need to appreciate what God has given us, and we need to be grateful. And at the same time, on our part, we, apart from all the progress that we can make, we must make our way towards this great gift God has given us, so that we are grateful to Him and connect ourselves with Him to have this wonderful relationship that can give us real courage and strength and spread His love and His kingdom here on earth. Let us try our best to pray with the power of faith through the intellect, so that God may be glorified in our life. God bless you.